Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, a major vote in the United Nations Security Council that could affect the future of Israel on the Trump administration's plan for an international stabilization force in Gaza. But it opens the door for a Palestinian state, and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu again makes it clear he opposes such a state. The vote comes amid a special tribute in Israel for the late Charlie Kirk. Here at home, President Donald Trump reversing course, now calling for the release of the Epstein files. Caught in the crossfire, how fishermen in the Caribbean find themselves caught in the middle as the U.S. attacks ships suspected of carrying drugs. And something interesting in health news. A new study shows the number of children with peanut allergies has dropped by nearly half. And the reason might surprise you. All those stories and more right now on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Monday, the 17th of November, going to begin this half hour with what could be an important day for the future of Israel as the United Nations Security Council is expected to vote on President Trump's international stabilization plan for Gaza amid concerns in Israel and opposition from Hamas. And it comes as a special tribute was paid in Israel to Charlie Kirk. Paul Petit brings us the story now from Jerusalem.
The United Nations Security Council is set to vote on the Trump administration's international stabilization plan. Netanyahu warned in Sunday's cabinet meeting that no plan should open the door for a Palestinian state.
I've been resisting these attempts for decades and have been doing so in the face of both external and internal pressures. So I do not need reinforcements and tweets and lectures from anyone.
He also said that Hamas will be demilitarized the hard way or the easy way with the support of President Trump. Hamas issued a statement ahead of the vote, saying any disarmament violates the right to resistance and Palestinian sovereignty. Sunday night, Israel honored a fallen ally in Jerusalem. More than 100 people turned out to pay tribute to Charlie Kirk, with music and multiple speakers sharing their memories.
It is hard to believe that Charlie Kirk is no longer with us. The world is quieter, less challenging place without his voice.
Kirk made clear his love for the Holy Land, and on this night, people here, even Orthodox Jews, gathered to show their love for him.
Charlie Kirk was a giant. He was a giant.
Kirk was quoted as saying that when he came here to Israel, he came in contact with the living God, and the Bible came to life. That's why he says his favorite trip he ever took was to Israel, and the second favorite trip he ever took was to Israel.
The first guest I invited as a minister to speak at our upcoming international conference on combating anti-Semitism.
Speakers shared how Kirk learned the importance of observing the Sabbath and became a staunch advocate for Israel.
I am very pro-Israel as far as the promise of the Jewish people, 7 million individuals out of 14, having a home. I believe that is an idea that needs to be defended, a Jewish state in the Middle East.
The program included a live question-answer segment moderated by CBN's Chris Mitchell, who spoke with Kirk's pastor and spiritual advisor, Rob McCoy.
Charlie looked at politics as an on-ramp to Christianity. He figured if he could get these young people rowing in the streams of liberty, they'd come to its source.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agreed with many Americans when he posted on X that Charlie Kirk was murdered for speaking truth and defending freedom. Netanyahu says he talked to Kirk 2 weeks before his assassination and invited him to Israel. That visit never took place.
May the Lord bless you and guard you and keep you.
Paul Petit, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is joining us now from Jerusalem to continue our coverage. So, Chris, the UN plan offers a pathway to Palestinian statehood. Why the outrage over this pathway?
Well, first of all, October 7th, Ephraim, 2 years ago, Gaza was a de facto Palestinian state since 2007. And during that years, up till October 7th, 2023, it became the largest terror base in the world. And so 2 years after October 7th, a Palestinian state in the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, in the Israeli people, is really a non-starter. The Palestinians in Judea and Samaria, for example, and called the West Bank, they're pro-Hamas as well. The Palestinian Authority, which is presumed to be the entity that will actually become part of that Palestinian state, still pays terrorists for murdering Israelis. So on the ground, it's one issue, and some say here is really nothing to talk about. But on the political and the diplomatic front, it's really all about Saudi Arabia, and it's sort of a Saudi tightrope. So how do you recruit normalization with Saudi Arabia without agreeing to a terror state in the heartland of Israel? And tomorrow, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, MBS, is going to be visiting the White House. And there's no secret that the White House is hoping that Saudi Arabia becomes part of the Abraham Accords. So this is sort of the language that they hope that will allow Saudi Arabia to say yes to normalization. But here on the ground, there's no appetite for a Palestinian state.
What do Christian supporters of Israel say is the biblical argument about dividing the land, God's land?
Well, they say it's a very sober warning that's in the prophet Joel chapter 3, that God will judge the nations because they scattered my people and divided my land. And the emphasis is on my land. This is God's land, not the land of the Jewish people. In Genesis chapters 15 and 17, God made an everlasting covenant with Abraham and his descendants. And so dividing the land opposes those covenant purposes. Also, there's a friend of ours, Bill Koenig, we've interviewed him just recently, wrote a book called Eye to Eye, and for really literally decades has chronicled the consequences of what happens to nations that divide the land of Israel. So it's a very sober warning of what happens to nations when they divide God's lands.
Hamas opposes the UN plan and Israel is against a Palestinian state. So what happens if the UN approves it?
Well, Ephraim, it's kind of ironic that Hamas and Israel, they both disagree with parts of the UN plan, which is actually part of the Trump peace plan. A UN resolution there in New York City is one thing, but what happens on the ground inside Gaza is another thing. Hamas is saying they won't accept it. They won't accept disarming, as Paul said in his report. Israel, on its other hand, says they won't implement, part of the UN resolution and the Trump peace plan. No international force will be able to operate without Israeli approval inside Gaza. And most of these nations actually that would be part of what's called the ISF, the International Stabilization Force, they don't want to disarm Hamas on their own. And then there's a telling statement by the IDF Chief of Staff. And what he said, Ephraim, was that the IDF is prepared for any transition from a broad offensive to seizing territory in the Gaza Strip beyond the yellow line. Right now, the IDF is operating or controls that part of Gaza Strip beyond the yellow line. And he says they'll achieve dismantling of Hamas and the demilitarization of the Strip, the Gaza Strip, either through an agreement or by military means. So one thing that may happen in the UN Security Council, but it could be another thing that happens here on the ground.
Chris, you moderated the question and answer segment at the event honoring Charlie Kirk. What can you tell us about the event and that Q&A segment?
Well, then it was a night to honor Charlie Kirk, about his defense of freedom, how he honored the Sabbath, and actually wrote a book about that called Stop in the Name of God. And it's also about his support for Israel. We had the opportunity and honor to interview his pastor, Pastor Rob McCoy. He talked about how the freedom that Charlie talked about was rooted in the Bible. He talked clearly about the sovereign nation of Israel that should be a sovereign nation. And he talked about Ezekiel 37, that Israel would be a political nation before it becomes a spiritual nation, believed in the ancestral right of the land, and that Jews were God's chosen people. Those are the kind of conversations that Pastor McCoy said he had often with Charlie Kirk.
Now, you did mention that Charlie Kirk was a supporter of Israel. How strong of a supporter?
A major supporter, and as Paul said in his report, his favorite visit was here. His first visit, his second favorite visit was his second visit to Israel. A Bible came to life here. He defended his faith in Jesus and defended Israel and many of his turning points event, all because of his visits here to the land of Israel.
All right, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you so much for your insights. As always, we look forward to checking back in with you in the days ahead this week. Here at home, President Donald Trump is now calling for the release of the Epstein files. It's a major policy reversal that ends a contentious issue that was dividing many Republicans. CBN's Dale Hurd is on this story.
In a post on Truth Social, Trump said, "We have nothing to hide. It's time to move on from the Democrat hoax perpetrated by the radical left lunatics in order to deflect from the great success of the Republican Party," adding, "I don't care. All I do care about is that Republicans get back on point, which is the economy." Trump's announcement followed a fierce fight within the GOP over the files, including an increasingly nasty split with Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor-Greene, who had long been one of his strongest supporters, saying he would support her Republican opponent if she runs.
The most hurtful thing he said, which is absolutely untrue, is he called me a traitor.
Some view the president's shift as an acknowledgement that supporters of the Epstein files release have enough votes to pass it in the House, although its future in the Senate is unclear.
I think we could have a deluge of Republicans. There could be 100 or more. I'm hoping to get a veto-proof majority on this legislation when it comes up for a vote.
Last week, Bill co-sponsor, Democrat Ro Khanna, said the Epstein files release might seriously damage Trump.
Some people say this could be the first day of him being a lame duck, the day that bill passes.
But many Republicans do not expect Trump to be politically damaged by the files release.
The women themselves that I have talked to have over and over again said that Donald Trump did nothing wrong. Quite a few of them even told me they voted for him.
I've never said that these files will implicate Donald Trump, and I really don't think that they will. I think he's trying to protect a bunch of rich and powerful friends, billionaires, donors to his campaign.
I suffered so much pain.
A new ad was just released by some of Epstein's victims, calling for the release of the files.
I was 14 years old.
I was 16 years old.
I was 16.
17.
It's time to bring the secrets out of the shadows.
Trump has never been accused of wrongdoing in connection with Epstein, who killed himself in jail in 2019 while awaiting trial. But the financier also had many prominent acquaintances in political and celebrity circles besides Trump. The bill under consideration would force the Justice Department to release all files and communications related to Epstein, as well as any information about the investigation into his death in federal prison. Information about Epstein's victims or ongoing federal investigations would be allowed to be redacted. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Coming up, the U.S. is hitting drug-running boats outside of Venezuela, and innocent fishermen are feeling the heat. We're going to hear why they're anxious and thankful for this war on smugglers when we come back. America's recent Navy strikes on alleged drug-running boats have rattled the nerves across the Caribbean. As tensions rise, the small island nation of Trinidad and Tobago is caught right in the middle. Chuck Holton is going to bring us that story.
Over the past month, the United States stepped up operations against Venezuelan smuggling networks in the Caribbean. Several fast boats suspected of trafficking drugs were destroyed in international waters. But for fishermen in Trinidad, only 7 miles from Venezuela, those strikes felt far too close for comfort.
This is the Gulf of Paria behind me. These islands over here are still part of Trinidad. This route that we're on right now in this boat is the route that smugglers take if they're bringing drugs or people or whatever across to Trinidad. So there's a heavy presence of the Coast Guard of the Trinidad and Tobago Armed Forces that patrols this area, but of course most of the smuggling takes place late at night. The fishermen who ply these waters to just try to make a living are now being told not to go more than 2 kilometers from the shore for the time being because they're all afraid of getting blown up.
I'm a fisherman for 28 years, fishing in Trinidad and Tobago waters. Yes, we are all panicking. The Coast Guard say, well, 2 kilometers off the island, don't go that direction. But anywhere else up on the coastal, this side we could fish. Venezuela is 7 miles away from Trinidad, very, very close. That you can look and see it. You can see a vehicle passing on the land. Futs is very close.
The fear is understandable. From Trinidad's western shores, you can actually see the lights of Venezuela at night, and any escalation between the two countries would hit here first. This is the island of Chacachacari. The land that you can see right off over there, about 7 miles away, is the closest point in Venezuela. So you can see why people in Trinidad are concerned about the conflict that might be brewing between the United States and Venezuela, simply because the Trinidadians know that wars have a way of spreading, and if they do, these people are not prepared for that in any way, shape, or form. The government here has a long history of working with the United States, most recently welcoming the USS Gravely for joint military training. That alliance has drawn sharp criticism from Venezuela, which responded by canceling oil contracts worth millions. But local journalists say the American presence is also choking off the flow of drugs and illegal migration across these waters.
It's very, very challenging for the fishermen who daily lives depend on fishing and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it has to be like that for now.
The increased patrols may have disrupted the drug trade, but they've also fueled political friction. Many in Trinidad worry their country could be drawn into the conflict.
So the ships and whatnot. Recently, we had a military exercise. Venezuelans are saying that that is provocation. But you realize that the Maduro administration, they are targeting our government. They are calling the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago a murderer, a terrorist, all sorts of things.
But after the Trump administration briefed Congress that the United States currently has no legal justification to strike inside Venezuela, lawmakers were told any direct action against the Maduro regime would require fresh legal authority and a new strategic decision from the president himself. For the people of Trinidad, that news brings a brief sigh of relief, but the fear of what could come next still lingers. From Trinidad, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Turning to health news here at home, peanut allergies among children have been a major concern, but now the number of children with those allergies has dropped by almost half. We're going to explain why right after this. A new study shows the number of children with peanut allergies has dropped by nearly half, and the reason might surprise you. As medical reporter Lori Johnson shows us, the drop came after parents reversed course and started giving their babies peanuts at a young age instead of waiting.
For years, peanuts remained the #1 childhood food allergy, often leading to difficulty breathing and, in rare cases, death. Pediatricians warned parents against giving their children peanuts until at least age 3. That guidance, however, changed in 2015, leading to impressive results. The medical journal Pediatrics published a new study conducted by the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia analyzing the dramatic reduction in peanut allergies. It tracked children whose parents followed the updated guidance by giving them the food at just 4 months old.
This is probably the biggest public health success in allergy in the modern era, I would say. What our data shows is that because of, or at least associated with those early introduction guidelines, there's about 60,000 less kids with food allergy today than there would have been. And that's a remarkable thing, right? That's the size of some cities.
Tiffany Leon began giving peanuts to her 4-month-old.
Just jumped in with 2 feet.
Doctors recommend mixing a couple teaspoons of all-natural peanut butter with breast milk or formula.
And so when someone told me, oh, this is how it's done now, these are the new guidelines, I just thought, oh, okay, well, this is what we're going to do then.
Allergies are the body's response to substances that are typically harmless that the immune system mistakenly sees as a threat. Experts believe introducing them early helps the body see them as friendly. The new guidance also recommends feeding other potentially allergenic foods to infants, such as eggs, shellfish, dairy, wheat, soy, and tree nuts. According to the research, those allergies decreased by approximately 1/3 in the last decade.
It's amazing for me to be able to sit here with you today and say, you know, for the first time in modern history, not only have we reduced the rate of food allergy diagnoses, but we're actually lower than we were 5 years ago.
Now that peanuts are no longer the most prevalent childhood food allergy, eggs take the top spot. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Coming back with an encouraging word for your Monday. Stay with us. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Welcome back. Time now for your Monday motivation. And today I leave you with this thought as we begin the week together. God is able to work all things together for your good. Just remember, you have to give him all. He won't take what you won't surrender. He wants it all, and he will work it all together for your good and for his glory. With that word, make this a marvelous Monday and have yourself a wonderful rest of the week. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can reach out and touch us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. We look forward to seeing you right back here tomorrow. Goodbye. God bless. Thank you for watching.